All righty. Good evening. Can everyone hear me all right?
Yep.
Perfect. Thank you. Awesome.
Yep.
I know we have a lot more people who should be kind of funneling in, but we can go ahead and get started with at least a brief introduction and kind of go into what we're going to talk about. But first and foremost, welcome to our first webinar of our Texas Prescribed Fire webinar series. This one is how to create your own prescribed burn plan. From the groups I work with and a lot of people who I've been talking to, we've seen a need for kind of an in-depth training on walking through a burn plan from start to finish, and getting into some Q&A about what goes into this. So we're really excited to put this on and hopefully answer a lot of questions and give y'all a great tool that you can use going forward. And like I mentioned in the chat, we are recording this, and we will post this to YouTube later, so it's something that hopefully you can refer back to. And for those of you who don't know me, my name is David Brook. I'm the prescribed fire coordinator with Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Service. I work with a lot of prescribed burn associations, landowners, different agencies, and kind of fire practitioners all around the state. And a big part of my job is to, provide, education, resources, work with people who are using prescribed fire, and really try and build that fire community, and expand the use of prescribed fire as much as possible. So I see a lot of really familiar faces in the crowd, and I know we have people from different prescribed burn associations all over the state. We had, I want to say, 230 or 240 RSVPs for this, so we're getting a ton of really good interest, and I can't state how excited we are to have everyone here. Um, so going into my last section is I work with, of course, AgriLife Extension Service, the Prescribed Burn Alliance of Texas, and our team, the Fire and Grazing Alliance. We're a grant funded team that is working to again provide a lot of education and resources for landowners. Part of the webinar, I'm going to send a link to a survey after this. It's completely optional and it's completely anonymous, but any feedback we get from y'all on what y'all liked or what y'all didn't like, or what kind of programs y'all would like in the future, that goes a really long way towards helping us put together the best kind of program, and can really help us secure funding for the future. So with that said, we have a really great guest speaker today. It's William Burkhead with Quail Forever. I've worked with him on numerous burns. He's been out to our property. He's going to be a really great guest speaker, and I think his plan is to break down a written burn plan that he used and put together just recently. I'm gonna kind of do a big deep dive into that. And then towards the end, we're gonna go into a Q&A for the last portion of the webinar. And while I believe there's a Q&A button where y'all can submit your questions, or please feel free to put them in chat, and then we will try and answer them as we go. But without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Will, and he'll be sharing his screen.
Right, let's see if I can do this. I'm not the most technological person, so we'll see what we can do here. Yeah, thanks, David. So my name's Will Burkhead. Like you said, I work for Quail Forever. I'm our state's prescribed fire coordinator. A lot of people have that title for their job. It seems like, but um, Quail Forever, we're a nonprofit kind of focused on upland wildlife conservation, ideally quail and pheasants. And so we help private landowners, we help public landowners plan, implement, and find cost share opportunities for prescribed fires. And so one of the main things of my role is kind of like David, is to help try and educate folks. Try and get everybody that is interested in burning to where they can burn on their own. They don't necessarily need me or David or folks Parks and Wildlife to join in, but we could just be additive to the equation. And so with that, like David said, we're going to be talking about how to write a burn plan. And so it would be wrong of me to not include what TDA's minimum standards of a burn plan are. So the Texas Department of Agriculture, they are the governing body over a lot of the burn laws and regulations. And so uh, they have their criteria for what they accept as a burn plan. We're going to be going over a Quail Forever burn plan, which will include all of this that you guys see on your screen. So, purpose of the burn, manager information, burn site information, personnel requirements, all that stuff. But it's going to go into more detail on some things and less detail on other things. No matter what, you can find different burn plan templates, especially on TDA's website. So they have NRCS's burn plan, Texas Parks and Wildlife burn plan, PBAT burn plan. So there's different flavors of that ice cream that you can get. So you can basically pick what's going to work best for you and your situation. But they're all going to basically cover these same criteria with just different emphasis on things. So um, a little bit about our burn plan. So our burn plan has been adopted by many folks. So Oklahoma State University, they created a burn plan template that was then adopted by Oklahoma NRCS, which was then adopted by Texas NRCS, which then we adopted. And so we've made our own revisions. So it's not exactly like Texas NRCS burn plan, but it's like 95% the same. So just keep that in mind if you guys do have funding tied to your burn, or if you're trying to get funding, you may have to change your burn plan to meet either TPWD or NRCS specs. So first page is pretty general information. So it's about the landowner. So in most senses, this is going to be you if you're writing your own burn plan. So your name, your ranch, how to get there, coordinates, acreage, phone number, all that kind of stuff. So this is just a good way that anyone that looks at your burn plan later on can basically tell, like, hey, this is where they're wanting to burn. This is whose property it is. This is who's in charge, right? Um, and then you come down here to, and I'm gonna make this short and sweet, like we want our burns to be. So feel free to throw questions in the chat. This is our notifications page. So for sure, we want to make our notifications as far as fire departments, county sheriff's office, TCEQ, TFS, Texas A&M Forest Service, as well as our neighbors. So having good communication is one of the keys to being able to continue burning after you burn. So if you don't communicate well with your fire departments, if you don't communicate well with your sheriff's department, that fire gets out or no one knows that it's happening and they get 911 calls left and right. Everybody's freaking out. And so just like on the burn, your pre-burn notifications are going to be extremely important to make sure that you have all your ducks in a row and that everybody's aware of what's happening. I do have a few sources for us to go through. So this is again through TFS, Texas A&M Forest Service. So this is their Fire Connect webpage. It's not 100% accurate. There's some discrepancies here and there, but here you can find just about any fire department or volunteer fire department across the state, and you can find their contact info for whoever you want. So like I live in Hood County, so if I wanted to figure out, we just have VFDs. And I wanted to look at Granbury Volunteer Fire Department. I'd click on that, and I'd see their fire chief was Matt. I'd find his phone number. I'd find his email. And then I can refer back to this and say, all right, put Matt's name, put Granbury VFD, put the phone number. In general, you just need one fire department, one VFD, but the more the better. Especially if you guys are doing growing season burns or late dormant season burns when wildfire activity can be a little bit more high stakes. And so the more fire departments that are aware, hey, this is what's happening, the more of them that can respond quicker in case something gets out, the more of them that can respond more appropriately in case something gets out, and hopefully you can squash it before it gets away from you. And then as far as your neighbors go, that's you, the landowner, that should know best. So I like to say, if it's a large property, and let's say we're burning on the north end, prioritize those landowners that are near the burn unit. Prioritize the ones that are going to be adjacent to the burn unit. If you've got like 20 different landowners to contact, obviously you want to do your best. You want to notify all of them, but the ones that are going to be closest and have the most potential that that fire could jump out onto their property, they need to know the most, right? As far as your sheriff's department and others as needed, if you're near a county line, you need to have multiple sheriff's departments on there. Again, they get really frustrated if they're getting a bunch of 911 calls and it was a prescribed fire, not a wildfire. So the more that they can communicate better with the public, saying, "Hey, don't worry about it; it's under control." Like there's professionals out there, the easier it'll be for you to have good relations with them. Your TFS fire coordinator, there you can just Google TFS fire coordinator. Again, they're going to be responding to wildfire incidents. So if that fire gets out, they're going to be some of the folks that respond to it. And it's again just trying to keep good communications with everybody, make sure that the players that are going to be there, they know what's happening, they know to be prepared if something does happen. One of the new things that TFS has come out with is a new Survey 123 page. So I always like to just throw the website in there. But I've also got it saved on my computer and my phone. All it is a fill out menu that you can say, hey, we're doing a prescribed fire. These are the goals. This is where it is. This is what time is going to be done. This is who to contact if you have questions. Once you fill all that out, you hit submit. They'll send you an email just confirming, hey, we got this, and then you're good to go. So that allows their fire coordinators to see where all the prescribed fires are around the state, so that they're again just having good communication, good understanding of what's going on in their areas. As far as your fire break type, this is probably the most important thing to keeping the fire in the box. And I really want to emphasize, if you guys are going to be doing disc breaks, go over them multiple times so they're not sloppy. You don't want to have a bunch of dead grass in there. But pretty well just use this as an opportunity to say, hey, this is where I can contain the fire. This is how I can contain it, and what needs to be improved upon. Um, as far as your smoke management, so this is going to be probably the most complained about that you're going to get with prescribed fire is whenever you're putting smoke on someone's house, you're putting smoke on a county road or anything like that. So you got to be very cautious about how you burn. And the whole point of this burn plan is saying, hey, we're doing our due diligence. We're trying to make sure that we're mitigating any negative effects that we're going to have. So obviously, you want to identify where are those smoke sensitive areas. Highways for one, nursing homes, schools. If you have an elderly neighbor that's going to be downwind of the burn, you want to note that, and maybe you want to plan a different day weather-wise so that you're not just blowing smoke onto those. Or you have to plan for a different category day so that you have better lift and that smoke is rising up a lot quicker. Um, I'm not going to go into the math behind category days. That's a different subject. But all that to say, you are responsible for your smoke. CIPBMs have the 300-foot rule. We tend to try and go by that rule, but Ultimately, if someone gets in a wreck because it's a 75-mile-an-hour highway and you put dense smoke onto it, you could be held liable. And so that's again, this burn plan is just trying to cover your butt, make sure that you're thinking about how you're doing this burn to where it's not only effective but it's also safe. On this page is our pre-burn checklist, so just making sure all things in the unit are taken care of. So the property that this burn plan was written over, they had oil structures, they had some brush piles inside the unit. They did have a little bit of juniper trees in there, but they were relatively small, 2 feet or shorter, so they weren't too much of an issue. But this is the page where you're going to make sure that you protect what needs to be protected. So if it's a $10,000 deer blind, you better make sure that you go put 100% of your effort into protecting it beforehand so that your volunteers don't have to put 110% effort during the burn to protect it, right? Because it's easy to protect something prior to ignition. It's not so much when you guys are actually burning. As far as your weather, so we like to use a couple different things. The three most important things weather-wise is going to be your wind speed, your wind direction, and your humidity. You can pretty well meet all of your objectives and your goals in a safe and effective manner if you're following this to a T, right? So your wind speed, the state has legal limits, 6 to 23 miles an hour. They also uh, allow for CIPBMs to go a little bit above that. But ideally, the point of the 6 to 23 miles an hour is that if it's below 6 miles an hour, you'll get shifty winds, which will then create its own weather patterns within the burn unit. And you'll have fire that's wanting to go to the left for 20 seconds, and then you'll have fire that's wanting to go to the right for a minute and a half. And so again, it's all just kind of trying to mitigate any unlikely scenarios with that 6 mile an hour buffer right there. 23 miles an hour is no human can run 23 miles an hour on foot like that and catch up to a fire. So uh, that should be pretty self-explanatory. We don't want to be outrun by the fire. Your wind direction, this unit specifically called for either a northwest or an east northeast wind. And I'll show you guys why in a minute. It was a smoke sensitive receptor. And so we had to take that into account. Humidity wise, we always like to say 20% is our minimum. That depends. It depends on your goals and objectives, where you're at in the state. If you're out in Ozona, 20% maybe the high for the day. It may bottom out at 13% or 12%, 9%, something like that. And so this is going to be very region dependent. If you're on the Gulf Coast, you're probably not going to get down into 20s. You're probably going to bottom out at mid 30s, low 40s. So just keep that in mind. None of these are hard rules. They're just suggestions to follow by. As far as all the fuel conditions, we rarely deal with mulch. I will tell you, mulch is a pain in the butt to burn in. So if you can avoid it, great. If not, you need to be watching that because that mulch can sit there and smolder for days, weeks at a time. I've heard of folks that have done burns and um, they mulched it before, 5 years before, and it smoldered for about 2 weeks. And then it shot up a fire into a juniper tree. Luckily, they were on-site landowners; they weren't absentee, and they were able to put it out before it really got into anything else. But just be careful when you're burning in mulch. Again, this is just meant to give you guys some ideas. The weather forecast that most fire practitioners use is going to be weather.gov. You can use Apple, you can use WeatherBug, you can use the Weather Channel. All of them are going to have their own discrepancies. Weatherman the job that you can be wrong at the most and still keep your paycheck at the end of the week. So just keep that in mind, guys, whenever you are burning or writing this prescription. Weathermen are going to be wrong. It's not a matter of if they can be wrong, it's when are they going to be wrong. And so, like I said, we use National Weather Service or weather.gov, which will bring you to this page right here. And let's say I want to, again, look at Hood County. So I'll just click on that map in the general area. Let's say I want to go out to the western edge of Hood County, out there towards Toller and Bluffdale. And right here is where you're going to, this little bitty side map, that's where you're going to be able to pinpoint where you're wanting to get this forecast. So this forecast is not going to be a spot forecast necessarily. It's going to be off of weather stations that the Weather Service has set up, and it's going to give you way too much information. So you don't need to know about rain, thunder, snow. I hope you're not burning when it's freezing rain. That'd be kind of interesting though. Sky cover doesn't really matter to me. All this stuff doesn't matter. What really matters, again, is your precipitation, or not precipitation, your humidity, your wind speed, your wind direction, and then your mixing height is going to be again towards that smoke management. Those are going to be some of the most important things to look at for this. They're not the end all be all, but they're going to be high priority. Um, so yeah, Weather Service will give you a nice graphical display of what your winds look like, what your humidity looks like, what your mixing height looks like, and then you can go out as far as 6 days in advance. So it does have its limitations. It's not as far out as WeatherBug or the Weather Channel that can go out to 14 days. But this is a little bit more accurate because it stays at that 6 day mark. Um, so ideally, you want to be checking this every day as you're leading up to a burn. So let's say you look 6 days in advance and you say next Tuesday looks great. You need to be looking at that multiple days throughout the week as you're prepping, as you're getting volunteers lined up, as you're getting equipment squared away. You want to make sure that that weather is staying within its prescription, because obviously it's Texas. Texas weather always likes to throw us a curveball. One day we've got a straight southwest wind, and then the next day it's going to be a northeast wind. So just keep that in mind as you guys are writing these plans, as you're doing this. Weather I'll just reiterate, weathermen are always wrong, or not always, but for the most part, they're going to be wrong. So just keep that in mind. As far as your equipment goes, so this is going to be another it depends scenario. So it depends on the complexity of the unit. Is it a simple square, or is there different creeks or bends that you have to work around? How big is the unit? How many folks are you going to be able to have? How many folks can you have at the minimum? This is going to be where you're going to figure out what all equipment needs to be on site for the burn. Um, if you guys know about herbicide, the label is the law. What you put on your burn plan is going to be the law for your burn day. So if I say that I need 4 drip torches on my burn, and lo and behold, I show up with 4, and then somehow one of the handles broke or it's inoperable, I'm out of prescription, and henceforth I should not be lighting that day until I can figure out something else. So uh, that's going to be again just due diligence, trying to cover your own rear end, because anyone can sue you for anything. So the lawyers are first going to look at your burn plan and say, all right, was he in compliance with this burn plan? And if you're not, that's going to lead to a lot more issues down the line, right? So there's a plethora of tools, small equipment that you can have. Um, I'll make note of this. Again, flags or road signs are going to be very important if you are potentially putting smoke on a road or if you are burning near a major road. So this burn unit, again, we didn't put smoke on the highway, but it was a very heavily trafficked highway. I mean, there was probably 1,000 cars that passed by this burn unit while we were burning. Um, so we wanted to make sure that we had road signs out. We wanted to make sure that at the very least, before they call 911, they had the opportunity to read, hey, this is a prescribed burn. It's meant to be happening. Smoke should be over there, right? As far as large equipment goes, some folks will tell you to get away, you can get away with electric little herbicide sprayers, the small little 20-gallon ones that you can fit on an ATV. You definitely can, but it requires a lot more prep work. So in this sense, it was a big unit. It was next to a major road in between major cities. So we wanted to make sure that we had gas engine pumper units. So these can fit in the bed of a UTV or the bed of a pickup. Doesn't matter. But like I said earlier, if you put this on there, it has to be there or you cannot be burning. You should not be burning. So again, this was in a heavily metropolitan area, relatively speaking. So we wanted to make sure that we had a VFD brush truck on site. Again, just to ease the tensions that might rise from this, because to the public, fire that's unknown is going to be scary. So the more logos that you have out there, the more professional equipment or the more professional it looks, the easier it's going to be for people to get on board with this, right? As far as your supplies, I cannot reiterate this enough. Always make sure you have enough fuel for your drip torches. Because if you're having to do a lot of strip fires, you're going to burn through that fuel very, very fast. On this burn, I think, David, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I think each team filled their drip torches, 3 drip torches on each side, at least 2 times, if not 3, because we were again just trying to make sure that it was a safe burn. So we were doing a lot of strip fires. Um, so yeah, make sure that you have enough fuel because it's gonna be a long day if you light the backfire and then you don't have enough fuel for the head fire, and you basically just gotta let it back all the way up to your burn break. Drinking water and snacks and food. This is one of the things that I sadly had to learn a hard lesson. So we had a burn last August. Mode breaks. It's 102 degrees for the high that day. And I bought 1 case of water and no snacks for anyone. The landowner didn't provide any of that either. So we very quickly ran out of water. We very quickly ran out of the energy from the breakfast that we had on the road. And the last 2 feet of the burn, it escapes and it starts racing towards the landowner's house. And what should have been a 2-hour burn turned into a 16-hour day where everybody was extremely dehydrated, everybody was extremely grumpy, and it was not a fun day. So make sure that you have drinking water, that you have electrolytes. Um, if you go on a burn with me, I keep a box in my truck now that is just cookies, it's Oreos, it's Cheez-Its, it's Goldfish. I call it the sugar and salt box. And so no matter what, on every burn, there's going to be sugar and salt on that burn for everybody to at least try and replenish something, because you never know what's going to happen. As far as your communications go and your weather, you do need to be recording your weather because again, you need to be making sure that you're within prescription while you're on the burn. You need to be making sure that you're recording that weather so that you can track, what worked best. Did 20% humidity kill all the mesquite trees, or can we get away with 30%? Do we need to drop the prescription down to say 15%? So always have a weather instrument on site, whether it's a Kestrel, if you have a Texas Mesonet station nearby, that can be a really reliable source that can give you very close information. And I'll show you guys that here in just a second. Um, and then the next thing is radios, cell phones. How are you going to communicate with each other on the burn? If it's a 1 acre burn, yeah, you can yell across the burn, right? No, no issues. But if you're on a 1,200 acre burn, and you're in the middle of nowhere, West Texas, and you got a lot of topography to deal with, you need to make sure that you've got radios, repeaters, cell phones, whatever you can to try and have good constant communication with everybody on the burn because um, when you're not communicating well, that's when teams get out of sync. That's when things go sideways, and um, it's not fun. Everybody complains about poor communication after the burn, right? So just make sure that you have enough radios at the very least for the burn boss and then the two team crew leads. So bare minimum, you need to have three. I always say try and have one for every single person because radios are expensive. We have cheap radios, so they work as much as they're worth. So some people, they can hold their arm up a little bit higher, get a little bit better signal, or they can move around. So um, yeah, just keep that in mind. Communication, how you're going to communicate with your team throughout the burn. That's going to be very important. PPE. So if you guys come on a burn with us and you're wearing a Magellan or a Columbia fishing shirt, you won't be burning. So we don't allow any of that. You got to wear, proper stuff, stuff that's relatively not going to catch on fire. And so this is where you make those requirements. You make it aware for everybody. Hey, if you're not wearing if you're wearing flip flops, you're not going to be burning with us. This is a hard thing because we don't need a 200-pound spray rig to be dropped on someone's foot when they're not wearing boots. We don't need someone wearing athletic shorts and a cutoff while they're in the middle of Weesatch or anything like that, right? So just make sure that all you guys are following PPE standards. Does not have to be Nomex. It can be blue jeans and a denim shirt. Um, but just make sure you guys are taking care of yourself. So crew members and responsibilities. So this is going to be where I kind of put um, just blanket items on there. So I'm not going to put anything specific unless it is an NRCS burn plan. So they will require you to name people. They will require you to designate prior their responsibilities. So torch, suppression, uh, crew boss, all that kind of stuff, right? In general, you just want to make sure that you have enough people to conduct the burn in a safe way, right? So in this sense, it was 330 acres. We had more than eight, but eight was the bare minimum. So again, your burn plan is the law. If you show up with seven folks and the burn plan says eight, you should not be burning, regardless of how much prep work, regardless of the safety net, regardless of how many pumper trucks you have on site. If you're not following this burn plan to the T, you should not be lighting. Your ignition plan is going to be one of many different things. So there's many different ignition strategies. We have on our burn plans, this is what I call a blanket statement. So this is somewhat copy and paste on all of our burn plans. It's essentially just outlining, hey, the firing strategy will be explained. It will be picked day of burn, and then we do have your typical ring fire technique. We have that explained so that anyone that asks, they can look at it. They can say, okay, this is the general idea. And then it has a few things for holding resources, weather being monitored, stuff like that. So again, what you have on there needs to be followed to a T. So again, this is like I said, it's a blanket statement, but we'll edit it, we'll take stuff out, we'll change stuff as need be. This is moreover just to give you a general idea of how we do things. But 99% of a Quail Forever's burn is going to be the ring fire technique. So just keep that in mind. I mean, if you burn the same way every time, you can get away with it. Your contingency and medical plan. So the contingency is going to be what happens if that fire jumps out of the burn unit. Um, so I always like to tell people if you've ever heard of a sentry goose. So a sentry, you see a flock of geese in a field, and you'll see like out of 100, there's like five or six that they're up, they're awake, their heads are up, they're looking around. Everyone else is either feeding or they're sleeping. So you need to have those sentry geese because those sentry geese are need to have their eyes on the outside because if fire is going to escape, it's going to escape outside the unit. And so I like to always tell people we want sentry geese, we don't want sleepers. So keep your eyes on the outside. Uh, in the event that it does get out, this is your plan of attack. This is how you're going to fight the fire. If it does get out, this can be as simple as we're gonna fight it from the black, and we're gonna attack the head fire from a safe distance, and we're just gonna let it peter out with water. Just kind of depends on your fuels. It could be as complex as, hey, we're going to go back burn off of this next county road because if it gets away from us, there's no catching it because of the terrain, because of the fuel. And so you got to have a good idea of what you're going to do if that fire jumps out. You want to be able to attack it appropriately. You want to be able to contain it as quickly as possible, right? Um, in this unit, it was on the western edge of the property. And so again, we had two winds that we could use, and had to open up the gate on the west fence so that we could, if we had to jump over to the neighboring property, if it did get out, we were able to go over and quickly attack it. If not, you can always use, two-track roads on the ranch. You can use county roads, other features, a lake, a pond, a tank, whatever it is. How are you, if that fire gets out, how are you going to contain it again, right? Your medical plan is going to be if someone gets hurt, what are you going to do? Who's going to be in charge? What are the steps that are going to be taken? Again, if you're on a QF burn, all most of our biologists are first aid and CPR certified. So we always like to say, um, we're available. We can be a resource. If you have a VFD, you can a lot of the time have someone a lot more knowledgeable on trauma and all that stuff than I am. So again, it's always best to have as many folks as you can there, as many professional folks that you can when it comes to stuff like this. Um, Always make sure you know the direction and the time travel to the nearest hospital. Because if someone, let's say they get run over or they get severely burned or whatever it is, a tree falls on them, you got to be able to get them to the hospital because in some cases it could be life or death, right? And so we just want to make sure that everybody makes it home safely. And that's one of the main priorities of a burn. So this is a pretty standard, my computer will load, pretty standard map of a burn unit for us. So like I said, um, this is that major highway. There's a subdivision up this way, and then there's a subdivision down this way. This is um, the unit that we burned 2 weeks ago, I believe, or last week. And yeah, it required either a straight northwest wind or an east northeast wind because that highway kind of bends around. So we couldn't get away with a southeast wind, um, which meant we had very little burn days through the year. Um, we've tried to burn this property, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 times at this point, and had gotten sidetracked because of shifting winds. Um, But so this is through ArcGIS, a mapping software program. It costs money. It's not cheap, but you can do this on X Maps if you're a hunter. You can do this on Google Earth Pro. You can do this on scratch piece of paper. As long as you have a general idea of what that burn unit looks like, what's in the property, what's in the burn unit, um, you can make a map pretty well. So a few things to note. You always want to mark structures in the property. You want to mark structures at least within a mile. That's my minimum is a mile, and I'll show you why on the next page. Then you want to mark anything that's in the unit that needs to be protected, kind of like I mentioned earlier with deer feeders. Need to know where those are at. I like to print off a map for everyone on the burn, so they can look at it. They know what the unit looks like, what's in the unit. They know those two track roads that they can fall back to if the fire gets out, right? So a picture tells 1,000 words. Your map is going to tell 1,000 words. So then I've got your smoke map. And I'll say different people are going to tell you different things on your smoke map. A lot of people like to use a program called VSmoke, which is, don't get me wrong, it's a very good program. It's a very intelligent program, and it helps in a lot of senses. I prefer, and I'll explain why in just a second. I prefer to do a radius around the center of the unit. And reason is a few Decembers ago, we were burning a 1,200 acre unit out in the Texas Panhandle. And it took a long day. We put a lot of smoke in the air. And so we had a southwest wind that was supposed to basically blow all that smoke to the northeast. Um, the smoke rose up in the column, and then it hit some winds that basically spun it around the entire county. So we had reports of the smoke settling on the south end of the county with a south wind. And so again, I just like to know, if that wind does shift up in the column, if the smoke does something that we're not planning for, what could it hit? Where could it go? And so I always say, do a 1 mile, do a 2 mile, do a 5 mile radius. Again, that's my preference. You can do V smoke, you can do any other smoke simulator that you like, but that's just my preference. And then again, I like to really hone in on what are our smoke sensitive receptors, within that, in this case, 2 miles, because there's a lot of expensive homes in both those communities. And I did not want to have angry phone calls from anyone from those. So yeah, your mop up is going to be basically, you've run the fire. So what do you guys do now? Um, how are you guys going to handle just containing the fire, making sure that it stays in? Do you need to go in and do any interior ignition? If there was any roads that cut the unit into sections, do you need to go check in on stuff? This is going to be where you basically designate, hey, the fire's been rung. What do we do now? Your go, no go checklist. So this is a very important thing to do the day of. And I want to reiterate, do it. So if any of these are a no, you should not be burning, right? So this is again covering your own butt. It's making sure that you're within prescription. If one of these is a no and you start burning and the fire gets out, there's going to be a lot of liability issues that you can run into because you checked no on that, knowing that something wasn't within prescription. Um, I always say make sure that the burn boss, or in our sense, the burn boss and the technical guidance, both sign that. Make sure that there's a paper trail saying, hey, like this has been gone over, like we're aware of everything, so that there's no like, well, I didn't realize that I was supposed to call the sheriff's department or anything like that, right? So make sure you guys do that. Make sure you sign it the day of, date it, because again, paper trails are going to be uh, kind of how you save your butt in a lot of instances. This is just some blanket statements, basically saying that QF, we're not the burn boss. The landowner is getting our assistance. AgriLife, Texas Parks and Wildlife, they'll have their own basically waivers, kind of saying like, hey, you're getting our assistance. Anything that you do wrong, it's not on us, right? And then you're gonna have your signatures. Again, who the plan was written by in our sense, who the plan was approved by or reviewed by. the client, the landowner, the manager, if that's going to be someone other than the landowner. So in this property's case, it was um, the landowners had a ranch manager who managed the property for them. So I had both the landowners themselves and the ranch manager sign so that everybody was aware, hey, this is the burn plan. This is what we need to follow. This is just a notes page that we have for the day of, basically, so you can keep track of your volunteers where they're at. You can pretty well take down your debriefing notes, and it's a little bit of a an idea on how to have your briefing meeting beforehand. So um, that should be just about everything. So I guess we can open it up to the Q&A session.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much, Will. I'm sure anyone here who's, made a burn plan, they know how intimidating it can be when you open that up and it's, 15 to 20 pages. And so you going over that in 45 minutes is just amazing. And like you said, we'll open it up to the Q&A, and I have some questions here that were in the chat. So I'm going to start with them and go knock them out in the order that they came in. So I'll
Sure.
answer them. Will answer them, and then anyone who wants to also make a note or chime in, please feel free to do so. But the first question I saw was would you suggest only the dispatch? So that was in your notifications. He was saying, would you suggest only putting the dispatch in the notifications tab?
It depends on the county. So some counties, the more rural counties, are just going to have a sheriff's dispatch. Some of them are going to have emergency management structure in their county government. So it depends on how your county's set up. I would always say err on the side of caution and always have more folks. If you think you need to have the police department, if you think you need to have the fire chief or whoever it is extra, go ahead and add them. Because the more people that know about it, you may get more volunteers, you may get more equipment, and then there's hopefully going to be less people that are irritated at you if something does happen.
Great. Yeah, and I know, like you said, with it changing county by county, I know, like for example, in Mason County, I believe they have to submit the burn plan to the county judge, for review or approval. And so, that's just one example, but it will kind of fall on you to be aware of what your specific county requires. So it's just, a little additional research will go a long way. Next question we had was, do all of the TCEQ burn rules apply? Um, I'm assuming they're mostly talking about wind speeds, timing, the burn, but correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, I mean, so for the most part, all of the rules are going to apply. There is, and I wanted to brush over this ever so slightly, so I don't have to get into the weeds of it, but there's what's called non-attainment zones. And so those have a little bit more restrictions, because they're more metropolitan areas or they're more in your oil and gas areas. So like Corpus Christi, Houston, DFW, Austin, San Antonio, that kind of stuff. So those are going to be your non-attainment areas where you will have to, notify TCEQ. You will have to be within certain ozone quality days that you can do a prescribed fire by. Um, I anticipated this question, so I went ahead and pulled this up. So this is the air quality page for TCEQ. Not all of these are actually non-attainment as of now. I think that they updated it back in October, and at least the latest map that I saw, it left out Amarillo. But basically, if you are in a non-attainment area, which you guys can look up the counties, they're going to be based off of your county. You can look here on this map or on this page, and if it is PM 2.5 or above, you're good. That's a general rule. don't take that as the law. But that's just to mitigate. TCEQ is trying to mitigate, um, any pollutants that may be in the air, and a lot of that has to do with, they're high metropolitan areas. There's a lot of vehicles. There's a lot of oil and gas refineries on the coast. All that kind of stuff, right? So um, TCEQ is meant to try and mitigate some of this stuff. So just reach out to your local office. They're probably going to be in one of these areas, and figure out what their rulings are. Figure out who you need to notify, if anything, because I've called TCEQ twice for DFW burns. One person said I didn't need to notify them, and then the next person said, "All right, I need you to fill out this form." So the government is the government. Not everybody's going to be on the same page, so just try and do your best as far as that pre-communication.
Next question. This one, kind of a loaded one. It is, what is the optimum acreage for a manageable burn unit? Um, I can start with this and then I'll get your opinion, Will, and anyone else. Uh, I think from what I've experienced, there is no answer to that, or no one answer to that. On the smaller side, whether it's 1 acre, 10 acres, 100 or 1,000, I don't think there's, one burn unit size that is or isn't acceptable. Any fire on the ground, if it's done the right way, with this burn plan and you have your burn objectives, whether it's 1 acre or 1,000, that's a-okay. On the higher end, I would say, optimum acreage is just what you can, realistically, manage with your crew, your experience, your resources. But it's a little loaded, but I wouldn't say there's a right or wrong answer. It's just kind of whatever you can manage.
Yeah, and I'll just say, the smallest unit I've ever done was a quarter acre. The biggest unit I've ever done was 4,000 acres. So you can, again, it's all about your planning and your prep work. So that 4,000 acre unit, it was actually multiple landowners burning together to try and meet an actual goal. So there was four different landowners that were at stake, and had some skin in the game. And so they all brought their own volunteers, their own equipment, and we were able to knock it out. Actually, in like 3 hours, which was pretty impressive. So yeah, it just depends. But you can do anything small, you can do anything big, as long as you've got the prep work done.
Next question was, how does one motivate the volunteer fire department to assist? This has been a problem in our area. I'd say again, that's can be a loaded one. I know, the rules for the volunteer fire departments change, county by county, department by department on what they can and can't do. There's plenty of departments that are able and willing to participate on the burn. There's some that maybe they're not able to participate, but they could at least, park a truck outside the front gate, to relieve, the stress of, passerbys, going into a panic. And then I believe there's some that, kind of red tape, they're not able to participate at all. Will, kind of what's your experience and how would you go about motivating them to assist or, building a relationship?
Yeah, volunteer fire departments, they're just that, they're volunteers. So they've got limited funding. Um, Throwing a couple $100 to the VFD may go a long way with them. It may not. Um, trying to have those good relations. That's going to be more of a question of how do you be a good neighbor. And so how do you treat them well? How do you make sure that they feel valued? And if they feel valued, if they like you, they're probably going to be more willing to come help out whenever you've got a burn going. So don't treat them like crap. I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Great. Next one, where can they find this particular burn plan template?
So this burn plan template is a QF one. So I guess you can email me. But it's like I said earlier, it's based off of Texas NRCS's. So it's very similar. to that one, but this is a fillable PDF, so it does make it a little bit easier. So just shoot me an email and I can send you something.
And I'll follow up with an email to everyone attending with several links to the PBAT website and other areas where there's resources and a number of different burn plan templates, and it's really about just finding the one that works for you. Next question. Um, this is one I had. It was, who do you recommend review a burn plan? Not necessarily you will, but if it's, a landowner and maybe it's their first time creating a burn plan, who do you think should be reviewing that prior to, lighting the fire?
Yeah, so in general, I'm just going to throw out a generality. Anyone whose title position is prescribed fire coordinator. So myself, I believe David, you can say yes or no that you could review a private landowner's. If you reach out to Texas Parks and Wildlife, they've got 4 prescribed fire coordinators throughout the state, from Lubbock all the way down to San Antonio. You can send it to them and get someone that, again, just the idea behind getting it reviewed is that it's someone that um, is external, that they may be looking at it from a different angle. But I would recommend a prescribed fire coordinator through TFS or TPWD, whoever it is, someone that's got a lot of experience writing these and reviewing them, because they'll be able to catch some things that you may have missed, or things that need to be addressed.
The only one I would add to that is if you are part of a prescribed burn association and you have members who are comfortable helping you, check out your property, help you create burn plans and review, leaning on those with experience within your associations is a huge, huge tool.
David, NRCS requires that if you're burning through them or one of their programs, that has to be reviewed at their zone office, I believe. And even if you are not burning on those guys are usually pretty good. If you want someone to look over your plan, they're pretty good to look over those and give you some suggestions, even if it's not an NRCS burn.
Great point. Thank you. Next question was for that burn that you went over, Will. It was, what did this burn cost and how was it paid for and how many volunteer hours?
So I'm assuming cost is, how much did it cost for QF to help? So whoever asked that, you can correct me if I'm wrong. So one of the good things in Texas is with a lot of the partners, so Quail Forever, Texas Parks and Wildlife, in a sense, PBAs, you have to pay membership dues and join a PBA. A lot of this help is free. So the only cost that's going to be on you, the landowner, is the prep work, making sure that there's enough fuel, making sure that fire breaks are in, making sure that there's snacks for everybody so that they don't fall out. That's going to be the majority of the cost for you. Pretty much just tractor time and diesel, right? So Quail Forever, our biologist team, we're funded through different grants, so we're able to offer these for free as technical guidance. Kind of the same thing with Texas Parks and Wildlife. If you're looking at a PBA, the majority of the PBAs, maybe all of them, I don't know, will require you to at least be a member of the PBA, come help on X number of burns for other PBA members before they come help you. But in general, a lot of this is going to be free. You won't necessarily need to pay a big chunk until you go the CIPBM route, and that's essentially you're helping pay for that liability that a CIPBM carry.
Great. And then the question was how many volunteer hours? Um,
Yeah, don't necessarily know a solid way to answer that. I would just say, this burn was, from the time of ignition to we finished loading everything back up into the trucks, maybe 3.5 hours. So that's what, I guess I would recommend is from loading, unloading to loading up, how long does that take? Obviously, if you sit there for 2 hours eating a barbecue sandwich with everybody, that's something different. But
Yeah. Um, Next question was, do you have do you have to have a trained burn manager to supervise the burn? And what grants and funding are available to help with costs?
so it depends. It depends on if you're going to be getting money. So if you get money from TFS, the burn has to be conducted by a CIPPM. If you get money through NRCS, it's kind of 50-50. A lot of the time they do want it to be through a CIPBM. So if it's just a private landowner and all his neighbors, you don't necessarily have to have anyone that is quote unquote qualified or has gone through certain trainings, through certain classes, courses, whatever it is, to be the burn boss. You, the landowner, are ultimately going to carry the liability in that sense. So more than likely, you're going to be the burn boss. As far as cost share programs go, those are going to depend on your county. Again, I live in north central Texas, so I'm more familiar with everything up here. But Texas A&M Forest Service has prescribed fire grants. Some of the bird joint ventures, so Oaks and Prairies joint venture, Gulf Coast joint venture, Playa Lakes joint venture, they're going to have money that can go towards some of these grants. So reach out to your local AgriLife folks, your local TPWD biologists, your local Quail Forever biologists, and we can get you tied in with some funding opportunities where they may fit.
Right. Next one was Will mentioned burning mulch. Is that the same as the floor in the woods?
No. So when we speak of mulch, in general, we're talking about people that want to get rid of cedar trees. And so they get, a big cedar eater out there and basically chomp it, shred it to bits. And so it basically creates this big, sometimes up to 3-4 inches layer of cedar mulch. And the story I mentioned earlier, cedar mulch can be very volatile, and it can also just sit there and smolder for weeks at a time. So if you're burning the forest floor, that's going to be more leaves and twigs. Don't necessarily consider that mulch because it's not a solid layer like the cedar mulch is.
Right. Next question was, I'm assuming that you would not want to burn during quail nesting season or fawning season. Is that correct?
So it depends. It depends on your goals. If you're wanting to do wildlife management, and that's your main priority, yeah, you probably don't want to be burning when birds are procreating, when deer are having fawns, all that kind of stuff, right? Because you will have some mortality there. It also kind of depends on your property size. If you're burning 100 acres out of 10,000 acres, yeah, maybe you can get away with a little bit of that mortality. Um, but if you can meet your objectives another day, um, have at it. Wait until a few months down the road. It all just kind of depends on what your goals and objectives are.
Yeah. Next question was, do you have to have a burn plan? Uh, I would say, I would say yes for prescribed fire. So, kind of a question that we get a lot is, what is prescribed fire versus the other kinds of burning? So, you know, prescribed fire, you absolutely do have to have a written burn plan. It needs to state your objectives, needs to state, the weather parameters, the equipment, everything Will went over. What that's going to do is that's going to show that you've put in, proper planning, taken responsible steps to, ensure that everything goes safely as possible. And that will also, if you are under the microscope from an escape fire, if you can show that you followed the steps and the guidance that you needed to, you've attended trainings, whatever it may be, that can protect you from being exposed to higher liability. And then kind of the other point was, you know what is prescribed fire versus, controlled burning or wildfire, right? The term controlled burn, that can pretty much mean anything. That can mean brush pile burning. That can mean someone burning trash in a barrel. That is not the same as prescribed fire. When we're talking about prescribed fire, we are specifically talking about burns with a written burn plan.
Yeah, and I would just add, like, if you get a prescription from your doctor, what's the whole point of that prescription? It's to meet certain goals and objectives, and it gives you X, Y, and Z of how to follow that, and how to obtain those goals and objectives. So that's prescribed fire. You have goals and objectives. You have stuff that if you don't follow it, you're not going to meet them. And so just yeah, I mean, for it to be a prescribed fire, you need to have a burn plan. Legally speaking, like I'm not gonna tell you that a lawyer will say yes or no to you. But a lawyer is gonna look at you and say you didn't have a plan, you didn't know what you were doing, you just went out and lit a match, and that's all we know. So this is again, it's all about covering your own butt, making sure that if the lawyers mount up against you, you've got something to protect you.
Next question. Does the documentation change when doing small plot burns for research?
It's a good question. I guess you can, and this is a rare scenario for me. You can do a burn plan for multiple units. So I do have a property up in the Panhandle that's got 25 burn units that we're working through. And so basically, in the ignition page, I went through all of those and basically just said, hey, we're going to burn those on whichever wind direction is going to basically send the smoke and the fire interior into the property. So you can do something like that. I would still advise you to have a burn plan, even if it's one for every single research plot. But
Yeah, I would agree. My cousin Chase Brook, he works for Extension. He's working on his PhD and he's working on brush pile burning. And earlier this year we went out and we burned 30 brush piles. And we even though it's brush pile burning and you don't technically have to make a burn plan, we always say it's good practice. It can cover you. So we had a burn plan, and it went into all the notifications, everything that we would do for a prescribed fire. So even for research purposes, I would say absolutely should make a burn plan. And then there was a kind of follow-up question on that one. It was, are ATV mounted water tanks and backpack sprayers ever a good substitute for having the FD out on site?
um, I don't know if they're a good substitute. Um, so I can again I'll lean to that Texas Panhandle property. There's some spots where we have to send in uh, guys on foot because it's such rugged terrain that you can't get a UTV through there. So when we do that, instead of just sending one person to light, we send three or four, two of them with hand tools, one with a backpack pump, and then one with the drip torch. So you can definitely do it. I don't necessarily think it would be a, a recommendation on every situation, right?
Yeah. Next question was, why aren't you allowed to burn through the night in Texas?
So the main reason is going to be your smoke. So if we go back to this, so your mixing height again is how high that smoke is going to go before it basically starts settling. And so as you guys can see, at nighttime, that smoke is going to settle. So even if it's raining, you're not going to see fog at 2 p.m. in the afternoon, right? You're going to see it in the mornings, you're going to see it in the evenings, you're going to see it at night. And so that's again just kind of following that rule of we don't want to have smoke just settling on highways or in neighborhoods or near a school or anything like that.
Next question was from Sam, and Sam, correct me if I'm misinterpreting it, but it's about surface winds and taking the measurements at so 33 feet versus 20 feet and how those relate to, taking w weather or wind measurements on your Kestrel at 6 feet, holding it above your head.
Yeah, so let's see, we have transport, 20-foot winds. Um, so we'll pull it up. So basically, uh, your transport winds are going to be what's transporting your smoke. So they're going to be high winds. Your 20-foot winds are exactly what they sound like. They're 20 feet off the ground. That's just kind of a standard for some of these weather stations. Versus 6 feet off the ground is going to be what you're feeling in your face. So as you can see, there's going to be a little bit of variation between those. So like what's this, Sunday on the 19th is projected kind of a northeast, east northeast wind, 10 miles an hour on surface level. But you go down to your 20-foot winds and it's 8 miles an hour. You go up to your transport winds and it's basically straight east. And so uh, this is my opinion, really only need to focus on um, your surface level winds because that's what's really going to be driving your fire. Um, Look at those transport winds, look at those 20-foot winds for your smoke. Um, so if you're in an area where there's a lot of houses or there's a school or an airport or something like that, yeah, you may need to look at those a little bit more because you can also see shifts in the wind once you start looking at those transport winds because they'll have at least on National Weather Service, they'll predict the transport winds will shift a couple days before they'll predict that the surface levels do.
Well,
So
where I was really headed with that, I mean, we know that we have the 6 to 23 mile an hour bracket set by TCQ. However, we've never quite settled whether surface winds are at 33 feet, which is what the National Weather Service uses, or at 20 feet. And then there again, I've seen a lot of people not do burns because they thought they weren't, they had a 3.4 mile an hour wind, which in the hill country, the 6 foot wind, 3.4 mile an hour wind does translate to uh, a 6 mile an hour wind at either 20 or 33 feet. I'm still not sure which one of those to use.
yeah, so I'll be honest, I've only burned in the hill country a handful of times. So it's been I have not run into this situation yet. David, he lives down in the hill country. He may be able to speak a little bit more into this, but um, yeah, I mean, so now we're getting into a lot of the gray area of your wind speeds. And so I'm not going to give you a yes or no answer because I will not be held liable for this. But um, if if you've got the easiest way this has been described to me is if you're in East Texas in the pines, that 20-foot wind is above the vegetation level, right? So it's 20 feet above a 100-foot pine tree, right? So that's not necessarily going to be what you're feeling 120 feet below on on the surface level. Um, so if again, I'm going to be very cautious in saying this. If you've got the wind in your 20 foots that is within prescription, and it can be safely done. Um, there is a little bit of a legal wiggle room there. Again, I'm not a lawyer. A lawyer will probably try and tell you that you're wrong.
Right. Let's see. Next question was, well, there was a few regarding PBAs, and if there's one in your specific area. I will send in my follow-up email a link to the PBAT site, and it will show the coverage of PBAs across the state, and if there is one operating in your specific county or neighboring counties. And what I will say, because there was a question about if PBAs will operate outside of their um, county or possibly assist on a burn on a neighboring county. I would say it could, the answer would vary depending on the PBA, but for the most part, I would say most PBAs are willing to, assist or, can certainly, work together with, neighboring PBAs to assist, within reason, if it's not too far. Um, but again, that would change on the specific PBAs. Let's see. Looking for any additional questions. If I didn't get to yours in the chat, feel free to unmute and ask Will or myself right now, or please ask again in the chat if I didn't get to you. And then I'm also about to paste the survey for the webinar in the chat, and I'll send it in the follow-up email again if we don't have any more questions. But as there are continuing education credits available for this presentation, we are offering a CFT credit for this, the continuing fire training credit. So if anyone does need it, please follow up with me after the webinar via email. Um, and again, I want to just give a huge thank you to Will for, for his time, his expertise, and, I hope that everyone here, got some helpful information about, where to start on a burn plan. The fire community is super friendly and super willing to work with one another. So there are a number of people who can help you, whether it's people in a prescribed burn association, people at the county level or the state level. And again, I will include contact information for myself, Will, was our partners at Texas Parks and Wildlife, Texas A&M Forest Service, and then the PBA community. So please, if you have any further questions, reach out to me, and then I will post this on YouTube as soon as I'm able, and send everyone follow-up information. But on behalf of Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Service, Prescribed Burn Alliance of Texas, the Fire and Grazing Alliance, thank you to everyone who joined, and thank you to Quail Forever and Will for your time as well.
Yep. Thank y'all.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone.